Well, what's good, everybody? How are you doing here on this Sunday? Y'all know who it is. Man, I want to get right to the conversation. First of all, I want to say I'm excited to have you guys who are watching. Actually, I probably should turn my fan off. Hold on for a second. There we go. That's a whole lot better. Man, I am excited and I want to say hello to everybody out there. And if you're watching this on demand, or if you're watching this live, either way, I'm glad that you decided to come by and listen. Now, tonight is going to be a fairly informal conversation. Okay. Fairly informal, meaning like I'm not going to try and break the bank, give information that you're already familiar with, but it is a conversation that needs to be had. And I shared a couple of posts this week, talked about it on a few brief live streams, just trying to get a feel of what everybody's thinking about and what people are saying about this topic of conversation. Now, here's why it matters. This conversation that I'm having with you, it matters because people are trying to find out what are the roots of the Christian experience. And the root of the Christian experience means, how can I tell the difference between Christianity in the first century context, the stuff that I see happening in churches or just in politics? You know, how can I tell the difference between which of this stuff is true and what is not true? What is Christian? What is not Christian? What is gospel and what isn't gospel truth? That's why it's important. That's why it's important to have this conversation. So people are asking questions. Research is being done to prove why people are not coming to church. Church has steadily been declining. And this was my prayer before I started. You know, the prayer was, God, I know that you are using my words and my connections and the people that I interact with to help them get through the maze of what people are going through in their faith journey. That's what I know. Right? And I know that because I hear it all the time. You've heard it, with your friends, loved ones, even with your own personal life. You may be someone who decided, I am not really connected with my faith right now. And this is why it matters. It's why I do what I do. It is simply taking an opportunity to help you understand or look through the maze and understand what are really the roots of your faith. In this particular conversation, what is the root of the Christian faith? Now, obviously, as I've done research, I've discovered some things, and I will continue to read and research. The guest I wanted to have on tonight is definitely not going to happen. But I'm not upset about that or in any kind of way. I definitely wanted them on, but hey, it's okay, right? It's okay. Sometimes you can't always, get the things that you want. So my intentions, I tell you what, it's a controversial topic, right? My goal is not to offend people. My goal is not to make light of Christian experience. My intentions is to have a valued and honest conversation, to look at different perspectives about Christianity. Maybe that you may not be accustomed to. Maybe you've never had this conversation before. Maybe you're in a circumstance in an environment where you can have that conversation. And so my job is not to lecture as much as my job is to have a conversation and to provide different perspectives. That's what it's all about. It's a controversial topic. It's a delicate topic. Was Jesus a Christian? My goal is to enrich our faith, not to hurt the Christian faith. But let me be the first person to tell you, consider myself a Christian. And there are many people out there in the faith today who have a problem with that. They have a problem with you calling themselves Christians. I'm not one of those individuals. I understand that you got to take the good with the bad, that every faith group has its challenges. Matter of fact, and I'll say this before I really continue to go. If you're listening or watching on demand, please feel free and make a comment and engage. That's what I want you to do. I want you to engage, right? As I said, my intentions is to be honest, to provide different perspectives, maybe perspective that you never thought about before. That is my genuine heart. I want to provide a different perspective about our faith tradition for those of us who call ourselves Christian. And we need to know why we believe what we believe and accept the good with the bad. I value your opinion. That's why I want you to comment. I want you to push back. If something that is said doesn't make sense to you, maybe you're not clear, make a comment down below. And y'all know I will respond to your comment. Right? Whether you agree, I agree with you or not. And I'm going to ask you a sincere question about what you said. A sincere question. Like, does that make sense? I may say something like, that's totally not true. And then give you scripture verse, chapter and verse about this thing. So that's my intentions, is to provide another viewpoint. It's that simple. My intention is to provide another viewpoint. It's not to be controversial. I only want to seek balance. That's what I want to do. When you look at, I can say this right now, and I'm only saying this because, right, y'all all witnessed a couple of years ago, a very important public figure came on, standing in front of the church with a Bible in his hand and misquoting scripture and all kinds of stuff. And I was personally livid, not because it was that individual, because I personally don't have an issue with the individual, but how that individual had co-opted the Christian faith. And what I said years ago, and I will continue to say and be a proponent of, is that Christians, we need to have backbone. And we need to be able to say, and we need to be able to say, God, I thank you for your blessings and all of this. But we also need to maintain our prophetic voice. To be able to call things that are right, according to our tradition. And to be able to call things are wrong, or not held to our faith. Even to look at things from a different perspective and say, well, I never thought about it like that before. And that goal then is to create dialogue. See, that's the goal. The goal is that we create dialogue. Now, I will ask if you're making comments, and I want you to make a comment. Matter of fact, if you're watching this and I'm coming through Restream, but please feel free to make a comment. This is not meant to be super professional, as much as it is meant to be an honest conversation, as much as it is meant to be a dialogue. Okay? That's simply it. An honest dialogue. Nothing more. Okay? Please be respectful. People are going to make comments. If you don't agree with what someone's saying in the comments, Just read it. If you like what someone says, give them a like. Let them know that, yeah, I get that. But what I do not want you to do is to become disrespectful. Because you can have dialogue and question a person's opinion without questioning their motives and perspective. Okay? So this is just a perspective. And from our research, I believe that there are perspectives about Christianity that people go to church every day just don't know about. And I believe that it's a disservice to not know. And I'll be honest with you. When I began to learn certain things about my Christian faith, I went through a religious faith crisis. When I say crisis, I never questioned Jesus, never questioned my faith in Christ, never had that issue, still never have that issue. Matter of fact, I'm more committed now than I've ever been. But I believe that the religion and nationalism sometimes we get the two confused, and we believe that nationalism is Christianity. Or if you have one political viewpoint, that is Christianity or a better form of Christianity. And I believe that that's detrimental because I don't think we're going to get anywhere in our world that way. People always ask me, well, if my goal in following and believing my Christian faith is to get to heaven, I'm like, great, that's fine. But what is your Christian faith doing for you and for other people on earth right now? Because you got to remember when Jesus came, Jesus talked about how we need to remove the boundaries between the God of Israel, well, in that time, and the people who need it. So please, if you're coming through, if you're watching, I want you to engage. I want you to tell me what you think. I want to hear what you have to say. So, but from my research, I'm going to give you a few thoughts that I want you to think about. Okay. And I wrote a lot of things down. So I'll go back and forth. Okay. Now let's transition to what do we mean when we say, is Jesus a Christian? Now, here's what I think. I think this is going to be more than just like one segment. And I'm hoping you guys are able to make comments, but because I'm coming through Restream, so I can't like see everybody who's making comments. But if you make a comment, I can read it. And actually, let me see real quick. I think I have, man, I'll just pull up. Should I do that on my computer? I wonder if I should just pull up Facebook. Let's see. Just be patient with me here. And I can actually read. Let me see here. I can read your comments live, and I'll fix it later. So I apologize, but that way, if you do make a comment, there we go. If you do make a comment, then I can see it. And let me see here. No, I'm not going to do that right now. That way I can see it and kind of respond to it. Okay. So anyway, once again, here's the go. I want to transition and I want to share a few things, and I'm probably going to end up doing this in several parts because it's so much information, and it can become heady, but I'm gonna try my best to not be too heady, and we'll absolutely go from there. Okay. So there are 3 times that, let's talk about the Bible. Let's talk about Christianity in the Bible. There are 3 times that Christianity is mentioned in the Bible. The word Christian is actually mentioned in the Bible. One is in Acts 11:26. It says the disciples were first called Christians in Antioch, which actually was an insult right? From the folks at Antioch who were trying to find a way to identify and talk about these new Christ followers amongst this really polytheistic environment. When I say polytheistic, I mean in Rome, in first century Rome culture, Christianity was not the only religion. That was a polytheistic culture, and Roman domination dominated the Palestinian area, the Jewish people, and had governmental control. Think about it like when we as a nation were in war against Iraq, and we sort of co-opted Afghanistan and Iraq, right? And it was kind of like that. Not exactly like that, but I'm speaking in terms of the format of how government ran when a foreign nation comes and takes control over another nation. So that's kind of, I give you an idea of how the political spectrum was. It's important to understand the political background by which these stories in the New Testament are written, right? So Christianity, or this, it wasn't Christians. The Christians actually in first century didn't refer to themselves as Christians. Jesus never referred to himself as Christian. Matter of fact, Jesus practiced Judaism, right? So, but the word Christian is mentioned there in Acts 11:26. It's mentioned in Acts 26:28 when Agrippa told Paul the apostle that you had almost persuaded me to become a Christian. So here again, you have the word Christian being used, right? This is people who were not Christians identifying these new followers of the way. That was one phrase that was used. According to some scholars, they would call it a follower of the way. Some first century scholars or scholars who did research on this New Testament historical world would say that the word saint was also used to refer to what we now call Christians. 1 Peter 4:16 says, if anyone suffers as a Christian. Those are two primarily, as far as I know, unless I miss something, those are three times the word Christian, unless there are some Greek alliterations there too, that the word Christian is used. Let's be honest, Jesus never referred to himself as a Christian. Jesus never called himself as a Christian. Okay, and I think most of you out there will agree with me. And here's the truth. The truth is, if you're listening to this and you're a person and you're in a church and you know that there's something more, you feel like there's something missing, or when you go to church, you feel like you can't connect, or you can't connect with the people, or there's something about the message that's rubbing you the wrong way. Maybe it's the fact that you don't understand. Maybe it's the fact that it's not really clear to you. And then you get confused when you hear the message. You see the lifestyle of those who are teaching the message, or those who, purport messages, preachers, teachers, evangelists, prophets, TV preachers, maybe even me. I put myself in that category, right? Maybe you get confused when you look at politics and you see some preachers to stand up and say, this preacher is wrong, or these people are going to HE double hockey sticks. Or if you go and you look at YouTube and you hear one preacher saying this and another one saying that, and then you hear some preachers talking about, having expensive things, and then other preachers talking about it's more important to have fashion than, Jesus was a rich person. You hear all these different kinds of things, and I'm not knocking. I'm just saying, if you're the kind of person, you're seeing all of this. You are observing all of these things, and it doesn't quite make sense to you, and you're trying to figure it out, right? You're trying to make it. This conversation is for you. My goal is to give you, man, and boy, my goal is to give you a basic to understand. Now, let's talk about Let's continue to about history real quick, right? Now I'm going to go for 8 more. I'm going to go 30 minutes flat and I'm out of here. 30 minutes is too long, and then we'll pick up next week, okay? So once again, if you're watching this either now or on demand, please make a comment below. Let me know that you're tracking so that I can make sure I engage with you. If you have questions, you can send them to me in a DM message as well, and I definitely will respond back to your questions, okay? Now, in the first century, there's Pliny the Younger, was a Roman historian. He wrote about these people they call followers of the way, is a phrase that he used. In the annals written in AD 116, the words Christian are mentioned. In the Great Fire of Rome, when Titus talked about Christians, they said that some of the historians of that time, during the first century, those who wrote secular history, talked about how, what was his name? The Emperor Nero, who's the Emperor of Rome, one of the emperors of Rome, wanted to blame Christians for the Great Fire of Rome, which led, some would believe, to mass Christian persecution during some first century times. Some would say that Christianity, the word Christianity, and actually the movement of Christianity and the formation of its religious perspective happens almost some 300 years after Jesus' death. So let's be clear. Christianity was a post-Jesus religious movement. All right? Christianity was indeed a post-Christ, meaning this religious perspective was actually birthed post-Jesus. Let's talk about that. So if anybody out there who wants to talk about, right, Jesus was a Christian, Jesus actually was not a Christian. The movement of Christianity started after Jesus. Jesus did not, there's no historical, biblical, extra biblical sources, absolutely none, purport that Jesus was a Christian, nor did Jesus identify himself as a Christian. Let's be 100% clear about that, okay? So Christianity was a post-Jesus movement. It was till 313 during the under the rule of Constantine, when through the Edict of Milan, go back and look it up, that Christianity gained its legal status in Rome. So now you had the secular culture saying that here we are. Now you have, again, the Roman Empire and a Roman emperor who's saying, in order for me to stop all of these uprisings amongst the Jewish communities against Roman rulership and domination, is that we need to unify everybody. And one of the ways that we can do that is that we can say that Christianity is the official religion of the Roman Empire. It was reinforced through the Nicene Christianity, the 380 Nicene Creed in the 4th century, and there was, I think it was 325 during the my historical brain just went a fluke. Y'all forgive me on that, but go back for a specific date. You can go back and look around 325 to 380 after death AD, and you can identify when some of the Christian movement, that the Roman ruling state, began to say that Christianity was the official religion of the Roman Empire. Now I'm going to fast forward because you can't talk about a lot of this real quickly, and I got 3 minutes to come to a close. I'm going to close this chapter of the history, because now next we're going to talk about the American perspective of Christianity, right? So once if you think about Christianity from this perspective, One, that Jesus didn't start Christianity. It was those individuals who considered themselves followers of Jesus's ways. And they didn't even call themselves Christians. These were, according even to biblical sources that I just mentioned a moment ago, used Christianity. These were secular people or people who were polytheistic and follow other traditional religions, doing a very diverse religious culture. Who said, "Oh, Christianity? Oh, those people follow. We just call them followers of that guy, that Galilean farm preacher." But the Christians did not identify themselves. So if the Christians did not identify themselves in the first century as Christians, nor and I don't think I'm wrong on this. If I'm wrong, y'all push back and we can provide evidence. Somebody provide evidence. Jesus didn't identify himself as a Christian, nor did the disciples identify themselves as Christian. So this was named, this word Christianity or Christian was a name. Here is the truth. The word Christianity at its inception, according to even to the book of Acts, was a name given, placed on Christians in order to distinguish them from all the other religious sects during the first century and maybe even a little bit prior. Okay? So we can proudly and bifactually say that the religion, okay, let's talk about that. The religion of Christianity may have started somewhere as far as 300 years after Christ's death. So I end the way I start with this section. We're going to pick up next week. Okay? If Jesus, and I just gave you some historical data. If Jesus did not consider himself Christian, then we can emphatically say that Jesus was not a Christian by name. Okay. So now we're going to get at starting now. That's what we need to end with today. And we can pick back up next week. Okay? This is what is important. It's important for us to understand. For those who are trying to figure out their faith, for those, I'm thinking about college students. You parents out there, you wonder why your kids, when they get to college, I got a kid who's going to college. When they get to college and they leave their faith, guess what? It was never their faith. And you're wondering, oh, my kid has lost the faith. Oh, my kid is not following Christ anymore. Right? This is why the conversation is important. Because I submit to you that I believe through my research that it's more important for you to walk in the faith and be a follower and disciple of Jesus rather than to just have a label of Christianity. Because research is showing that people between ages of 18 to 25, they're not coming to church. So it's very, very likely, and I pray for my own family, that your child may have a very different perspective about Christianity. If you raise your child in the faith and they continue on with that and they never question their faith, well, fine. But that's probably not the experience of many people. That there will be times in our lives when we question our faith. And then there are people who listen to this and you've been hurt by churches. And you're trying to figure out, do I even want to connect with the church anymore? But you feel guilty because you feel like if you don't connect with the church, then you are inherently sinning against God. And people are actually preaching and telling you that. So there is a huge disconnect to what I would say a difference between what does it mean to be a follower of Christ and what it means to be a Christian. One bishop said to me years ago, and I dealt with this was probably back in the early 2000s. He said, young preacher, this is an old Church of God in Christ bishop. He said to me, there's a difference between the church and the church. I said, what do you mean? He said the church, little c, is in man's hands, but the church, big C, is in God's hands. And your job as a young minister is to decide which one you're going to follow. That hit me between like a bull's eye, hit me right between my eyes. Even I remember when I was in undergrad college, I thought about, even at that time, man, this is in the 90s, I had issues with the church. Not with Jesus, but just how we reflected the message of Jesus and what the impact we were having was not substantial enough for me. I thought we could do more, and I still feel that way many, many years later. So that's where we're going to end with this time. And man, I hope you guys engage. I really, really, really hope you engage. I hope I didn't scare you guys away. Once again, my goal is not to be controversial as much as my goal is to give a different perspective. And hopefully you'll listen and engage with me, and then we'll come back next week. But before we go, I want to share something with you that I think would be helpful. I saw this years ago, and it's a really good depiction of, this is probably one of the most widely viewed YouTube videos that it's been out for 10 years now. It's got over 35 million views, but hopefully I can get it through here so you guys can listen to it. Okay. So let me give it a shot here. See if we can get it going.
What if I told you Jesus came to abolish religion? What if I told you voting Republican really wasn't his mission? What if I told you Republican doesn't automatically mean Christian, and just because you call some people blind doesn't automatically give you vision? I mean, if religion is so great, why has it started so many wars? Why does it build huge churches but fails to feed the poor? Tell single moms God doesn't love them if they've ever had a divorce, but in the Old Testament, God actually calls religious people whores. Religion might preach grace, but another thing they practice, tend to ridicule God's people. They did it to John the Baptist. They can't fix their problems, and so they just mask it, not realizing religion's like spraying perfume on a casket. See, the problem with religion is it never gets to the core. It's just behavior modification, like a long list of chores. Like, let's dress up the outside, make it look nice and neat. But it's funny, that's what they used to do to mummies while the corpse rots underneath. Now, I ain't judging. I'm just saying, quit putting on a fake look. Because there's a problem if people only know that you're a Christian by your Facebook. I mean, in every other aspect of life, you know that logic's unworthy. It's like saying you play for the Lakers just because you bought a jersey. See, this was me too, but no one seemed to be on to me. Acting like a church kid while addicted to pornography. See, on Sunday I'd go to church, but Saturday getting faded, acting if I was simply created to just have sex and get wasted. See, I spent my whole life building this facade of neatness, but now that I know Jesus, I boast in my weakness. Because if grace is water, then the church should be an ocean. It's not a museum for good people, it's a hospital for the broken. Which means I don't have to hide my failure, I don't have to hide my sin. Because it doesn't depend on me, it depends on him. See, because when I was God's enemy, and certainly not a fan, he looked down and said, I want that man. Which is why Jesus hated religion, and for it he called them fools. Don't you see so much better than just following some rules? Now let me clarify. I love the church, I love the Bible, and yes, I believe in sin. But if Jesus came to your church, would they actually let him in? See, remember he was called a glutton and a drunkard by religious men. But the Son of God never supports self-righteousness, not now, not then. Now back to the point, one thing is vital to mention. How Jesus and religion are on opposite spectrums. See, one's the work of God, but one's a man-made invention. See, one is the cure, but the other's the infection. See, because religion says do, Jesus says done. Religion says slave, Jesus says son. Religion puts you in bondage, while Jesus sets you free. Religion makes you blind, but Jesus makes you see. And that's why religion and Jesus are two different clans. Religion is man searching for God, Christianity is God searching for man, which is why salvation is freely mine and forgiveness is my own, not based on my merits, but Jesus' obedience alone. Because he took the crown of thorns and the blood dripped down his face. He took what we all deserved. I guess that's why you call it grace. And while being murdered, he yelled, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Because when he was dangling on that cross, he was thinking of you. And he absorbed all your sin and he buried it in the tomb, which is why I'm kneeling at the cross saying, come on, there's room. So for religion, no, I hate it. In fact, I literally resent it. Because when Jesus said, "It is finished," I believe he meant it.
Man, that's powerful. That's powerful. That's powerful. So, hey y'all, man, listen, I will close by saying this is a conversation that we need to have, and I want you guys to engage. So we're going to come back next week. Lord says the same at 3:00 Pacific Standard Time. I want you to come on into the room, engage. We'll have some guests that come through, and we'll continue this conversation as long as it needs to go, and we'll see what the Lord says. But my goal is for those out there, again, if you are wanting more, you're trying to figure some things out in your faith and you're struggling, if you are a young adult and you're leaving home for the first time and you have some different viewpoints about your faith, but you feel like that if you shared that, your family would disown you or they'd make it very difficult for you, this is a conversation that I want you to be a part of. My goal is to help you find Jesus, the true Christ. And we're all on this journey together, and I want you to join with us. So, hey, man, thank you guys for coming through. I'm going to see you guys next week. Please go ahead on and make a comment, share. If you will, join the conversation, ask a question. I will respond. I'm coming back next week, 3:00 Pacific Standard Time. I want you to be a part of the conversation. I think it's going to be good. If you have any specific questions for me, please don't hesitate to DM. For all of my Words of Change family, thank you guys. Go to our Facebook page, Words of Change Podcast. YouTube family, so glad that you guys are listening and supporting as I've made this move, and now we're coming back live again on Sunday. So I look forward to talking to y'all soon. Peace out. Sorry about that, y'all. We'll see y'all next week, okay? Share, like. All right. Bye-bye. I'm out.